Hi, my name is Trevor, and during this portion of the lab, what we're going to do is prep our cab tire so that we can install a male style 515P. And I got two different types of ends because I'm not 100% sure what you guys received in the kit. So I'm going to show you how to prep both styles, and then either style that you get, you'll have the video that you can use to prep this. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the cable. So taking my knife, and be sure not to slice into yourself. So always slicing away from your body. Okay, what I like to do is I like to guide the knife along the cable, and sometimes you'll have to push the knife slightly harder. Can you pause the video? Okay, so I'm just cutting the jacket, and then what I like to do is lightly ring around the rubber of the cab tire. And if you cut into the insulation of the actual wires, you're going to have to restart. Okay, but I like to take off about, I'm going to call that about 1.5 inches of wire. 1.5 inches of wire. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is just cut out the paper. So you're going to see there's this paper separator that is in between the cables, and you can either use your knife or... Okay, so I'm separating all the paper. Next thing I'm going to do is grab my side cutters, and I want to trim the paper out as close as possible to the rubber. And if you do happen to have any of the, sometimes you have a nylon thread in there, take that out as well. All you're going to want is your black, white, green. That's it. All right, so there it is. Okay, that's all prepped and ready to go. Next step is I'm going to grab the 515P plug, and I'm going to disassemble it. I have to loosen the top screws, all 3 screws, so that this piece comes out. Okay, and then you got the rear retaining screws. You can loosen these off as well, and sometimes it's easier if you take them right off for the installation. You're going to need a Phillips driver to do that. Depending on the plugs that you get, sometimes you need a Phillips driver, which is the X, or you're going to need a number 1 Robertson, which is green handle. Okay, and very rarely are you going to see it where you need a slotted. Okay, but you have to be a little flexible on the type of plugs that you got. Okay, it could be any of the 3 types of drivers. All right, so I'm going to take the cable and I'm going to feed it through the base of the plug. That's a really important step. Okay, I'm going to eyeball the connection. What I want to have happen is, I'm just going to highlight this right here. When I put these rear clamps on, I want the clamps to be clamping onto the jacket. Okay, so what that means is I have to sometimes judge where this is going to be sitting in conjunction with the base here, and I may have to trim off a little bit of the wire, or some of the wire will have to be effectively folded in. But we want to have the jacket underneath the clamps. All right, so looking at this, it looks to me like I'm going to probably have to trim off about 1/2 inch is what I'm going to have to trim off. Okay, so I'll just hold it over here so you can get an idea of how much you need to trim. Okay, effectively you can think of it like I line up the jacket so that it's at this part of the base. Anything that projects beyond the front needs to be trimmed. So with that in mind, trim away with your side cutters. And if you mess up, you can always do it again. Okay, so don't forget to keep that on. Okay, and just put it on and keep it on, because you don't want to go through the whole process of termination and then find out that you forgot to put the base on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of the insulation off of these wires, and you're going to use, just clean up my work area. Okay, you're going to use your wire strippers, and this is a number 14 gauge stranded wire. So you're going to look at the side of your side cutters, and it says stranded and solid. Okay, and then you're going to see 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, depending on the type of wire strippers you have. Okay, but for the most part, they always have number 14 gauge. And then you're going to strip off about 1/4 of an inch on all of them. And sometimes this is a little bit of trial by error. So you might end up doing it once and find out that you have too much conductor and you have to do it over again. And that's okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm twisting all the strands. Okay, so I'm doing a right hand twist with all the strands so that they are combined, so that when I put them into the terminal, there isn't a loose strand somewhere. All right, so color codes. If you see green, green is for green. Brass is for black. The silver is for the white. So I'm going to do the green first, and sometimes you got to loosen these off first of all so that they'll actually. Okay, so you're going to see a clamp, and inside this port here, that's where the wire goes. So you're going to tighten the wire, and the clamp is going to close on the wire. So you got to make sure that you do that properly. So I'm going to put the wire in, and the wire just goes into the port, just like so. Ends up sitting right beside the screw. And you should see rubber insulation touching the clamp, but you don't want rubber under the clamp because then you'd have a bad electrical connection. You're going to tighten the screw nice and tight, and then you're going to move on to the next color. And just the way it works out is I'm going to do the white. And I'm just going to retwist these strands here. Insert the white into the silver terminal. I'm kind of holding the cable between two fingers and I'm pushing the connector on, making sure that the rubber isn't underneath the clamp. Give this a twist, and I'm using a Phillips driver again. And then the last one we're looking at is the black. And that's how I always like to connect plugs as well as receptacles. The color code scheme that I always go with is green, white, black. You'll find that most electricians terminate that way. Black is the hot, and that's the one we like to connect last. The reason we connect the black last is because it's the energized conductor. Okay, now when you're making a little extension cord, it's really not that big of a deal, but if you're working with NMD90 and walls, typically we test everything, but there is the off chance that you're dealing with a live conductor. So if you put the hot on first, there's a better probability of yourself getting injured. So that's why we always do the black last. Okay, so we got that on. All the wires are nice and tight. And I'm just going to do a quick little inspection here. Make sure there's no loose strands. We're going to align this with the case. And it only goes on one way. Once it's aligned with the case, and if you take a look at, see where my jacket is sitting, it's exactly where I want it. Okay. We're going to screw the plug face to the case. And it's not a whole lot of twist. It's usually only about one or two twists of the screwdriver, which locks the plug onto the face. Again, I'm using Phillips for everything on this, but you very well might have to use Robertson depending on the plug that you're dealing with. Okay, then we're going to be taking the retaining clamps, and I'm just going to make note something here. Depending on the plug style that you're using, for example, this is a different plug style, you're going to see that there's these white inserts. Depending on the size of the cable that you're using, if you're using SOOW instead of the junior, the SJ, you may have to take those inserts out because the cable itself is much larger. Okay, so these are removable if needed. Now, I don't have that with this style of plug because it's kind of just designed for this type of cable. You could actually use it for SOOW, you just wouldn't tighten the rear clamp as much. All right, so you put your two pieces together, and then you're going to tighten a couple of the retaining screws. And you want to make sure that you don't over tighten this. It's just there to secure the cable to the plug. Some people over tighten it and then they actually pinch into the wires. Okay, so caution should be taken. At the end of this procedure, what you want to do is do some frequent inspections, and you can kind of still see an air gap there. So I'm going to tighten it a little bit more, and then I'm going to give a small tug from the cable to the plug itself just to make sure that it's fully secure and it's nice and secure. I think I might be able to do one more turn on both wires. Yeah, we're good. And then that's the male end of the 515P. Now you don't have a female end. This is the female end. If you're going to be making an extension cord, okay, you'd obviously want a male and a female end. Okay, and the procedure for putting this onto that other end is going to be the exact same from what you just did. Oh, sorry. Pause. Okay, now I'm going to terminate the alternate style 515P male style plug. And just a note, when you take a look at these, you'll be able to see in different locations on the plug, there's a brand name, but you're also going to see some ratings on this. You're going to see that it's rated for 15 amps and 125 volts, and it even tells you that it's a 515P, and it has typically a CSA label. It tells you it's NEMA, which is North American Manufacturers Association. So there's all sorts of good information on these plugs. Okay, so I'll just take this guy apart, and then I'm going to prep the cable. But before I prep the cable, I just wanted to line this up into the plug itself. Alright, so now some of these plugs, the screws are designed so that they actually stay on the case, not these ones though. Alright, so these are really not designed for continual removal and installation. This style of plug has a weak spot, and that's just at these hinge points. So if you take it off and put it onto cable, it's only going to last a few times before it breaks. So when I flip this guy around, it's a little bit different. If I was using the larger cable, I would remove these two white caps. But because I'm using SJ, the junior one, I don't have to remove those caps. I can keep the caps on. So you're going to see green for your green wire, white for your silver for your white wire, and then on this side you're going to see brass for your black wire. You're going to put the wire into the applicable holes and then tighten the terminals. So what I was saying with the determining how much wire I need. Okay, so we're going to line the cable up. So obviously we're going to have to remove some of the jacket. You kind of want to get an idea of how much jacket you got to remove. Keep in mind you want jacket underneath this white piece right here so that it clamps the cable to the plug. So I'm just going to put my thumb where I'm going to remove the jacket, and I'm thinking we're looking at right about there. Maybe a little further. That's my happy spot. So it's about an inch. You're taking off about an inch of cable jacket. If you find that you don't have enough cable jacket, you can always remove a little bit more. Okay? When you're doing this, just be aware that it's quite easy to cut into the cable itself. So I'm just scoring this wire to remove it. Or sorry, scoring the cable to remove it. After I've removed the cable, I'm just going to do a quick little inspection of my wires, and they look good. Okay, I'm going to cut out the paper. And it's just packaging. Using your side cutters. And then we're going to strip the insulation off of our wire. And again, we're looking at removing about 1/4 of an inch of insulation. I'm going to just twist the strands. And I might end up cutting off some of the copper depending if there's too much. So now we're going to grab the plug itself. And again, I like to do green first and then white. And sometimes it's pretty handy to line the wires up as they're going to be going in. So I'm going to throw the green in. And I just want to make sure that I'm not clamping down on the rubber, but only the copper. So you can see inside the port a little bit. So we tighten the green. Okay, and I'm just going to, you kind of continuously want to retwist the strands because they do come undone. The problem with the strands is if there's one strand that's untwisted and there's like a single strand coming off of the conductor, what could happen is that strand could touch one of the other terminals, causing a problem with the extension cord. So if you take a look inside the terminal, you can see as you're installing the wire so that you can make sure that the copper itself is the only thing that's under the clamp. And continual inspection is always good. The last wire would be the black. Black wire in, and once the black is in, tighten that. Now just a note, I don't want anybody plugging these into a wall outlet, okay, at this stage. Okay, this is not ready for doing anything with. Just when you get the connector or the plug onto the cable, put it off to the side. It's something that we're going to be using in a later lab. Okay, so do not plug this into a wall outlet. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to try to close this thing. And if you take a look at it, I'm squeezing on the side. And I can't close this gap. All right, so looking at that, I do believe that we're going to have to remove these white pieces, or at least one of the two white pieces. Okay, and you can do that at any point. So you're just going to grab your flat blade screwdriver, and it just pops right off. Okay, And sometimes just removing one is sufficient. Okay, now we can close this and tighten it. And again, I'm clamping so that the jacket is under the clamp, not the conductors. Just going to tighten this a little bit more. Alright, so we have that style installed. Alright, so you're going to either see this style or you're going to see that style. Either one, you should be able to install it onto the SJ cable and just give it a tug, and this cable should be nicely secured to the plug.